What's up, everybody? So, for those of you who watch my videos, you know that I'm currently in Washington, the state of Washington. Um, my family and I were moving around. We don't know exactly where we want to live yet. So anyhow, so we're still looking up cities, and as I was looking up cities, because like I'll look up on Google and I'll go on YouTube and see what like local residents say. Sometimes you'll see videos from realtors, what they say, and to get an idea about whatever city we want to go to, right? And then it dawned on me. I was like, you know what? I could kind of do a service a little bit to maybe there's people out there thinking about moving to Hesperia, California, or Apple Valley, or Victorville, Tri-City area. Because I lived there for, I don't know, 15 plus years, about 15 years, I think. And so I know a lot. So anyhow, so this video is going to be about the pros and cons of, in general, Hesperia, Apple Valley, and Victorville. And the reason, so first of all, to give you an idea about all three of those cities, the reason I'm including all of those in one video is because when you live there, you kind of like in your head, you generally consider them all like the same city because they're all scrunched together. And so you could be going down a main road, either Main Street or Bear Valley, and you'll pass through either of those cities. Matter of fact, Bear Valley Road is like the main street in all three of those cities. It passes through Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Victorville. And so I'll talk about all those. Can you quiet down a little bit, please? Okay, so let's start with what city? So I have my girlfriend right here, and she lived in the high desert longer than me. So what city should I start with? Apple. So I guess Victorville. Victorville is the largest city in area and also in population out there, and that's the city that most people are probably going to know. So let's talk about Victorville first. Pros and cons of Victorville. So it is the biggest population city and the biggest area of city, and as with any big city comes crime, homelessness, traffic a little bit, but definitely crime. I would say, I don't even know the numbers off the top of my head. Just from living there, I would say off the top of my head, the crime is probably the worst in Victorville out of those three cities. And if you live there, you kind of know what streets to avoid, what areas, like anywhere like downtown Victorville, off 7th Street. You want to avoid, especially at night. You're not going to walk down 7th Street in Victorville, huh? And Palmdale Road. Yeah, 7th Street in Victorville. My girlfriend also said Palmdale Road. Palmdale, she's right. But Palmdale is also like a really deserty road, and so it's dangerous for potential crime, but also, if you look up the news in any of those cities, you hear a lot of people getting hit by cars. And that's because it's a lot of desert. Sometimes people drive really fast. There's not always street lights. And so it's dangerous in all three of those cities, but particularly, Victorville, because there is a lot of like really long streets. Some of them like Palmdale Road that are in kind of in the middle of the nowhere. And people just go super fast, not paying attention. People trying to cross the streets because there's not always street lights. And so I would say definitely Victorville's the most dangerous out of all those. Depending on where you live, it's the most ghetto of the three cities, definitely by far. And also, even though Victorville is the biggest city, there's not necessarily anything better there shopping-wise than Hesperia or Apple Valley. Matter of fact, Victorville doesn't even have a Target. It used to have a Target, and it doesn't anymore, right? There's no Target in Victorville. No. And so while in Apple Valley there's actually 2 Target stores, and in Hesperia there's 1 Target store. And so, yeah, there's not even, there's basically what I'm saying is there's not like a big reason to live in Victorville over Hesperia, Apple Valley. Matter of fact, if I had to choose, if I were, say, someone who's watching this video who's coming from out of some other city or state, and you're deciding which city to live in out of there, I would not choose Victorville. I would not choose Victorville. Like I said, it's the most ghetto. That's where the most crime is going to happen. They're all kind of the same as far as traffic is concerned. Maybe downtown Victorville somewhere has maybe more traffic, but in general, they're kind of all the same. But yeah, that would be my least favorite city. If I was someone coming there new, I would not recommend Victorville. Um, Other than that, it is a big city with all the other big city amenities. That's where the mall is. There's one mall in all three of those cities. It's Victor Valley Mall. It's technically in Victorville, and when I say technically, this is where it gets weird. So if you ever go there or whatever, the side of the street that the mall is on is Victorville, but right across the street on the other side is Hesperia, right? Where the Walmart and all that is. And so that's why when people talk about there, they kind of just talk about the high desert because it really seems like all one city because the lines are drawn really, really weird. Sometimes you're like, wait, am I in Hesperia? Am I in Victorville? Even after living there 15 years, I would even ask my girlfriend sometimes, wait, what city is this? Are we in Hesperia? Are we in Apple Valley? Anyhow, so the mall is technically in Victorville. There's one big college up there, Victor Valley College, that is also technically in Victorville, way on the other side, way on the east part of town. Other than that, is there Walmart in Victorville? Because I just thought about.
Yeah, the one on Condo.
Oh, right. Yeah, so so there is Walmart, there's no Target. The general food, there's gonna be McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, Del Taco. We also have a local food place called Baker's Drive-Thru that's there. There's In-N-Out there. But anyhow, so it has all your shopping needs. There's grocery stores. I think there's even like Mexican grocery stores, all kinds of different foods. And so it pretty much has all of that. Trying to think of other. I'm kind of like mixing it and mashing pros and cons. So, yeah, the pros are that it has, your basic shopping, all the big grocery stores, not a lot of like health food stores. I can't even really think of any off the top of my head. But like I said, it does have Walmart. You can go to either Hesperia or Apple Valley to go to Target. And pretty much all the big food chains like Burger King, McDonald's, et cetera, et cetera. There's, I don't think that there's Wendy's, Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Domino's Pizza. All the big food chains are there. There's like over 100,000 people there. So it's a big city. Like I said, that's where the college is. That's where the mall is. One of the cons, though, talking about the mall is small. It's not a very big mall. It's like, a simple one-shot walkthrough, but there's like a little play center there for children, which I liked for my son. There's a little food court there, so there is some stuff to do. So let's see, what city should I do next? I think I don't have a lot to say about Victorville. I honestly, the reason why is I'm telling you, if I was gonna move there, if someone was asking me, I wouldn't move to Victorville. You could get anything else in any other cities. The only reason why I would maybe recommend Victorville is it might be cheaper in certain parts because it's ghetto. But there's no reason to move to Victorville. There's really not. Anyhow, moving on. The second city I'll talk about is Apple Valley, which is also there in the high desert. So Apple Valley is. Oh, before I go on, so one of the pros of Victorville is. It is close to the 15 freeway. Well, on certain parts. On the western part of Victorville, it's close to the 15 freeway. And so the 15 freeway goes north and south. So you can go north towards Nevada, Las Vegas, or you go south towards the ocean or other cities. And so that's nice. Whereas Apple Valley, moving on to Apple Valley is more inland on the eastern side of the desert. And there is no freeways. Right off the bat, that's one of the cons of Apple Valley. That's one of the things that we talked about. We always hated because we lived out there in Apple Valley. And there's no freeway. Well, there is on the northern part. Way on the northern part of Apple Valley, you could... It's so northern, it's almost in Victorville. And you could catch it, the 15 freeway. But it's way out of the way. There's kind of like Apple Valley, the north end, and Apple Valley, the south end. And on the south end is where it's more developed. That's where like the majority of commerce is and newer houses and stuff like that. Anyhow, so there's not a freeway out of there. So that's one of the cons. Um, the pros is that there is, like I said, actually there's two Targets. There's a normal Target, there's a super Target, there's a regular Walmart. There's not a super Walmart. You'd have to go to either Victorville or Hesperia to get a super Walmart. There's all the other major foods in Apple Valley. Again, Burger King, McDonald's, Papa John's, Domino's, Taco Bell, Del Taco, all the major U.S. Food places. There are no In-N-Out though. You have to go to either Victorville or Hesperia for In-N-Out. The housing prices, I think out of all three of those cities, they're relatively the same. It just depends where you go. There's parts of Apple Valley that are way more in the desert, like out in the middle of nowhere, and those might be cheaper. But in general, I think they're all pretty much the same. Not much else to say about Apple Valley. Apple Valley is kind of more an old folks community. There's more older people that live in Apple Valley, and on that part of the high desert, the eastern part, that's where the Victor Valley College is. There's a really nice neighborhood called Spring Valley Lake, technically in Victorville, but it's towards Apple Valley. And so Apple Valley is probably, again, not knowing the numbers, just off of my experience, I would say Apple Valley is probably the least crime out of all three of those cities. So I would probably recommend moving there. If someone came from somewhere else, I would say, if you're looking for less crime, a little bit quieter, Apple Valley. But if you like being next to the freeway, being able to go somewhere quickly out of the city, then that's not going to be good. You have to travel basically across Bear Valley Road a good 20-25 minutes, depending on traffic, maybe a little bit more, just to get to the 15 freeway. So that we've never liked that. Yeah, it's because it is tucked more out into the desert. So that's bad. Moving on. Talk about Hesperia, California. So Hesperia, California, I wanted to talk about last because in recent years, maybe the last 10-15 years, on the western side of Hesperia by the 15 freeway, a lot of shopping has developed there. So right off the 15 freeway, so whether you're going north or south, you get off on Main Street, and that's Hesperia. On all sides of the freeway, that's Hesperia. So when you get off on Main Street, and it's become so developed right there. Like there's a super Target right there. There's all kinds of food. There's In-N-Out right there. There's what else is there? I think there's Baker's. There's Burger King, Jack in the Box, hotels. Everything is right there off of the 15 freeway and Main Street in Hesperia. There's like everything right there, and right off the freeway, that's all that stuff. And then if you go a little bit east, there's Walmart. There's Aldi, which recently came there. That's I think that's from Germany. Aldi. Just all kinds of shopping right there. So all that's really great. I really like that part of town as far as shopping. The problem is there's not a lot of housing right there. There's maybe like 1 or 2 apartments right there, maybe some houses. You're kind of getting towards another little city called Oak Hills, California at that point. But anyhow, that's where like the main, for me, I would say all the good shopping is right there. I mean, just all the good stuff. We love going to Target. Like I said, Walmart, super Walmart's right there, super Target's right there, In-N-Out, which we love, just everything. So that's really great. But all the housing is most of the housing is more inland. So you get off the 15 freeway and you go east. And then you start seeing more and more housing. After a couple miles, you start seeing housing. And Hesperia continues down for, I don't know, several miles. It's really long east to west, maybe not as long north to south. So yeah, out of all three cities, like I said, I would probably say either Hesperia or Apple Valley. It just depends what you want. There's good shopping in both, good food in both. Hesperia is a little bit higher elevation, so it's gonna get a little bit cooler, but it's also a little bit more windy. So either city. Now that I've kind of talked about all three cities, I'm going to talk about all three of those cities in general, the pros and cons. So let's start with the cons of the high desert in general, all three of those cities. So it is a desert, but it's a high desert, which means it's high elevation. So it ranges depending on where you're at in Victorville or Hesperia. I think some of the lower parts in Victorville get down to like 2,500 feet in elevation, whereas on the high end in Hesperia it's around 3,500 feet. So it varies about 1,000 feet depending on where you're at, and so there could be a few degrees difference in temperature depending on if you're in the lower part of Victorville or the higher part of Hesperia. Maybe like 5 degrees Fahrenheit difference in temperature, which, maybe on a hot day that could kind of make a difference, or on a cold day it could be like, wow, you go from kind of cold to really cold, maybe to not windy to very windy. And so so it's higher elevation a little bit. So if you don't like high elevation, you're not going to like that. High elevation, you got less oxygen, and if that's a problem for you, you're not going to like that. And the next thing is the wind. That's one of the cons. The big cons of living any of those cities is the wind. The wind is annoying. It's not all the time, but it's a lot of times. And it's not even always like a really big wind. Sometimes it gets kind of like a big gust of wind, but it's just like annoying level of wind. Like you go to open your car door and your car door swings open, or you're coming out of the college and you have some papers in your hand and they fly away. Just annoying wind. You just can't, like, sometimes you just want to go outside and have a nice day, maybe sit at a cafe outside, and you just can't because the wind will blow over your cup and whatever. They're all three windy cities. All three of them, they all get wind in varying amounts, maybe more in Hesperia because it's higher elevation. But yeah, the wind is very annoying. Very much, I would say, con. If you don't like or if you don't like the wind, don't move to the high desert. Any of those cities, they all get windy. The next thing is the heat. So even though it's high elevation, or a little bit higher elevation, like I said, from 2,500 to 3,500 feet, the latitude is still only like 34 degrees north, something like that. So it's still in the hot part of Earth, and so it definitely gets hot. And it's in the rain shadow too. It's behind the mountains, so that's why it's a desert. It's you don't get the moisture coming over the mountains or whatever, however that works. And so it gets hot. It gets really hot. Summer starts early. It's sometimes it's like hot like year round, it seems like, but I don't know. I want to say April, May it starts warming up. You start getting into the 80s and 90s, and then June, July, August, September, just hot. Just assume that June, July, August, September are going to be all 100-degree days, maybe 110, maybe 115 if it's a bad day. August is the worst as far as humidity is concerned. I think August is just the worst in general. It's really hot, really humid. Every day just expect to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Very annoying heat. June, it's hot, but it's generally more dry, and that's the other thing. If you come like from the East Coast somewhere, like Florida or Georgia or whatever, the first thing you're gonna notice is dry. All months. If you're coming from the East Coast, you're gonna notice that it's dry, really dry. I mean, if you like to shower a few times a day, you're gonna stop doing that because your skin is gonna get so dry. You're just gonna be putting lotion on all the time, and especially in the winter, it's very dry. Okay. So it's a dry heat, but it gets a very hot heat. I would say it's like, because I've been in like really humid places too, and humid places kind of feel like you're in an oven, you can't breathe. I hate really humid places too, but very dry places, how I describe it is like you feel like in like July, August, you really feel like you're under not a microscope, what is it? A magnifying glass. So you'd feel like someone has a magnifying glass over your head, and the sun is just beating down on you. I mean, it's really like high intensity sunbeams. That's how it is in the desert when it's hot. I mean, just very hot. But the irony is because it's so dry that you're able to go into places, like say you go into Target or Walmart or whatever, or even your own house. If you have the air conditioning going, it'll be pretty cool. Sometimes even cold, like in June, even in June, even though it's like 100 degrees outside, but you go in somewhere and you'll start to feel cold because there's not all that humidity in the air, and so it's able to cool down really good with air conditionings. And so it's weird. You could be like smoking hot outside, and then you go in somewhere with air conditioning. Oh man, it feels so nice. I mean, you might even feel so cold that you want to put a jacket on. It's weird. It's really weird. It's so dry that you get those weird scenarios where, like I said, it's really hot outside, but somewhere inside where it's air conditioned, and you could be like freezing cold. Yeah. So anyhow, the cons are definitely the wind, definitely the heat, and especially the wind and the winter. I mean, the winter is bad enough as it is when it's cold, but then the winter is bad because it's cold, but then the wind hits you and it's even more cold, and it just goes through your skin. It's a terrible cold. So the wind is terrible. Even in the summer, it's already hot, and then the hot wind blows on you. So the wind is bad. I hated the wind so much. In all three of the cities, the wind's bad. The heat is bad in all three of the cities. It's gonna get hot. Okay, you might be able to go up a little bit higher elevation to Hesperia or even Oak Hills. You get around like 4,000 feet elevation, but it's still hot. It's still really hot. Like I said, June, July, August, September, very hot. Even October, it's still lingering heat. Maybe once Halloween comes around, it starts to cool down, but the heat really lingers for a long time. It's very, very hot. So those are a couple of the cons. A couple of the pros about living in the desert. One, like I said, in that desert specifically, it's very dry, and like I said, so even on a hot day, if you got your air conditioning going on your car, or you go in a store, it might not feel so bad. Especially if you're somewhere where it's really humid, you might think it's cold. You're like, wow, it might not feel as hot. It's weird. It's weird when a place is so dry that it doesn't feel like that nasty, sticky feeling, sometimes. So that's one of the pros about living in the desert. There's a lot of space. So like, we've lived in bigger cities like Los Angeles or whatever, and one of the cons about that is like there's no parking anywhere, or you got to pay for parking. And that's one of the things about the desert that's good is the parking is free, and there's always parking. Even if a parking lot is filled, sometimes you could park like in the desert. Like there would be a shopping center, all the parking is filled, but there's like a little desert area right there with just dirt, and people would they'll just go park in the dirt. Matter of fact, we were talking about Baker's Drive-Thru, which is a hamburger place, and the one in Hesperia, sure enough, right next to it is just like an empty lot, just like dirt. And so when the parking lot fills up, you'll see people, truckers or just whoever, just parking in the dirt. And so that's one of the nice things about the desert is there's like always parking. There's always parking, like wherever you go. It's very rare where you can't find any parking space. You can always find a parking space like somewhere. So that's nice. Any other pros, cons? So the wind, the heat. It's a lot of open spaces. Oh, all three of those cities are not pedestrian friendly at all. So the buses don't run very often. I think they come every half hour or something like that, or every hour maybe. Yes, every hour some of the buses. So the buses don't run. So you could be sitting at a bus stop for a long time. If you miss the bus, people there dread missing the bus because it's like, oh man, I gotta wait a whole other hour. I think during the height of COVID, they were making you wait 2 hours at a bus stop to do a full run. It's horrible. So yeah, not pedestrian friendly if you want to catch a bus. I mean, we even had problems trying to catch an Uber, and walking. You do not want to walk. For one, the high desert is big. And you do not want to walk from one end to the other. It's really far. You try to walk, say, from the one end of Hesperia to the other, forget about it. I mean, you're talking about at least like 10 miles from one side of Hesperia to the other, or Victorville, or Apple Valley. They're all really large, long cities. There's no trees. Remember, it's desert. And so if you're trying to walk out there during the summer, June, July, August, September, there is no shade. You're just out there with the sun beating on you. Even if the wind is hitting you, you're going to end up getting the wind burn because you think that your skin is cool, but the sun's still hitting you, and then you go inside and you're all burnt up. I've had that happen before. Not pedestrian friendly at all. And then you're like, oh, it's nice, a cool winter day. No, it's not. You're trying to walk, and the wind is blowing you all around, and it just feels extremely cold, and it's just. And like I said, and there's no cover, whether it's sunny or raining. There's like nowhere to duck under to get away from the heat or the rain or anything. You do not want to be walking out. It's like mandatory that you have a car. Even riding the bus, like I said, I mean, you can do it. It's not terrible, the bus system, if you time it perfectly. But you're going to be walking long distances to get to the bus, and then you're going to be waiting a long time for the bus, and that's no fun when it's really cold or really hot. When it's 110 degrees outside, you don't want to be sitting at a bus stop. And the bus stops don't always have a cover or a little booth you could sit in. A very, very non-pedestrian friendly city. Especially, a lot of parts, especially in Apple Valley and Hesperia, don't even have sidewalks, right? Yeah, a lot of parts of Hesperia and Apple Valley don't even have sidewalks. So you're just walking on the street in traffic or walking in the dirt, and then you got to watch for, thorns or snakes or whatever. And so, yeah, very, very, very not pedestrian friendly. If you like going for walks and stuff like that, that is not the city for you, or all three of them, they're not the city for you whatsoever. Very bad, not pedestrian friendly. The overall pros, like I said about shopping, is when you include all three of the cities, Hesperia, Victorville, Apple Valley, is that it has pretty much everything. I mean, there's certain things like I said, there's no big mall, but there is a mall. Like I said, there's multiple In-N-Outs. There's, pretty much any food that you could think of. There's Chinese, there's Mexican, there's American food. All the main chains, Wendy's, Burger King, all the pizza places. There's all that. Whether, there's not a lot of like small mom and pop chains, but all the major food chains they have, especially when you include all three cities. Like I said, there's a college out there. There's lakes out there. There's Hesperia Lake, and there's a couple more lakes out there. And so when you include all three cities, there's hotels, there's shopping, there's multiple post offices. There's just everything. The mall. So it's very inclusive city. I think they even call it an inclusive city because you don't necessarily have to leave for anything. You have everything there, all the government buildings, Social Security, DMV, everything that you need for your daily life, they have there. The problem is if you want to get out of there, this is where another con comes in. So the main way to get out of there is the 15 freeway. 15 freeway goes north and south. And that's good, except the traffic is horrendous. On any given day, you just have to expect that there's going to be traffic on the 15 freeway going north or south. And so even though technically it should only take you like an hour and a half to get to the beach, or technically it should only take you say 3 to 4 hours to get to Las Vegas, because of traffic, it could take you 3, 4, 5 times as long to get to any of those places. Seriously, not even making that up. I mean, it could take, I've heard it taking people 5 hours just to go 10 or 15 miles down the freeway just because it's so packed. And the reason it gets so packed is one, because it's the 15 freeway is the main thoroughfare in the eastern part of California. That's one reason. It's just so many people. There's just so many people going up and down there. So it just creates a lot of traffic. That's one. Plus accidents happen. Sometimes fires happen in the Cajon Pass. When you're going southbound on the 15 freeway, you go down the mountain. It's called the Cajon Pass. They call it down the hill in the high desert. And there's fires sometimes. That makes traffic. In the winter time, sometimes it snows really bad from there, and so you have to go really slow through that. That could cause traffic, or an accident, which causes more traffic. Expect traffic. If you hate traffic, you're gonna hate that. If you like to go anywhere else, if you stay within the high desert, it's not so bad. You kind of learn what streets to avoid or whatever. The main streets, you might want to try to stay off Bear Valley or Hesperia or Bear Valley Road or Main Street if you can. But sometimes you can't avoid those streets. But if you stay up in the high desert, you're usually okay. But it's when you try to leave. And we've often talked about that, where you feel like you're trapped on an island because the traffic is so bad. It discourages you. I don't even want to hop on the freeway and deal with the traffic because you don't know. You could get on the freeway, oh, it looks okay, and then you go like 5-10 miles down the road, and then the traffic is just slammed, and you're just stuck in there for hours. You can't turn around, nothing you could do. Going, like I said, north or south, you could hit traffic. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I moved out of there. Just got tired of all the traffic, and even in the local traffic, there's a couple 100,000 people in that area, and even though the area is really large, you can hit traffic sometimes. You know, it's not horrible within the city, but sometimes you can't hit traffic. And sometimes places are really busy. You might go to In-N-Out and there's a line around the building. There's a lot of people out there, and that creates foot traffic, you know, in businesses, and then also traffic on the roads. But yeah, definitely the traffic on the 15 freeway going north and south, horrendous. Almost every day. You go back like 10-15 years, it wasn't so bad on certain days, but now it's like any given day you go out there and it's just traffic on the 15 freeway, and so yeah, trying to think of any other pros and cons off the top of my head. It's all I can really think of, you know. Like I said, as far as shopping, everything, they have everything. Like I said, it's a very inclusive city. You could be there. Sometimes people stay there for years and don't go out of the high desert just because there is everything. Like I said, the food and shopping and like government buildings, and maybe your job is up there. You just have no reason to leave. Sometimes people just have no reason to leave because there is virtually everything up there. So if you're one of those people who like that inclusive living, like, hey, I'm just gonna go there and I don't need to go to the beach. I don't need to go to Vegas. I don't need to go anywhere else. I live there. You might like it. And if you don't mind the heat, maybe you're indoors a lot, the heat's not going to bother you. If you're indoors, the wind's not going to bother you. Then it's not a terrible city. You know, you start to learn, once you're out there, you start to learn what areas to stay away from is crime. You're like, okay, I'm not going to drive over there. I'm not going to drive over here. And like I said, if you stay in your house or whatever, you're pretty much fine. You know, I never really heard about a lot of break-ins or anything like that, especially like in Apple Valley. It's fairly nice. Like I said, a lot of older communities, quiet neighborhoods, stuff like that. So yeah, if you're an inclusive person, I stay in my house, I stay in my city, I don't go anywhere, you'd probably like it. If you're a person who likes to go here, oh no, I get bored, I need to go down here and I need to go to this club, I do want to travel here and there, you're not gonna like, because you're gonna get stuck in traffic. And yeah, if you're the type of person who wants to get up and go different places, like I said, the beach or wherever, you're going to get tired. Or you're like, oh, I'll just live up in the high desert, like some people do, and I'll drive down to, say, Los Angeles to work. You're going to be in traffic like every day for hours, hating your life. Don't do it. And the lure, I'm going to tell you, because I watch some of the real estate people's videos, and they'll tell you, hey, the housing is really cheap here. You can live up here, it's really cheap, and you can work somewhere else and make more money. Don't believe it, because you're going to be stuck on that 15 freeway wanting to shoot yourself because it's so horrible. You don't want to be stuck hours every day in traffic, hating life. You don't want to do it. Don't fall for that. Don't move there just because the housing is cheap. I would say that. I mean, if that's your only option, that's your only option. But there's probably other places cheaper that you can move to where it's not so inclusive where you can get out if you want to. That's really, I would say that's one of the biggest downsides of there. It's like you're trapped on an island. If you stay there, it's like if you're on an island. If you live in Hawaii, it's nice if you don't want to go anywhere else, but you're like, well, what if I want to leave Hawaii sometime? Oh, well, then it's expensive. You got to get on a plane or a boat and you got to travel for hours. That's when it becomes a problem. So it's kind of the same thing. You know, if you want to stay there in the high desert, you're fine. Sit in your house, play video games, watch TV, whatever, you're fine. But if you're the type who's like, no, I want to leave every now and again, you're not going to like it. Anyhow, that's the pros and cons of living in Hesperia, Apple Valley, or Victorville. That's my opinion. And there you go. Thanks for watching. See you guys next video.